Hey, this is Redban, and you're listening to the Death Squad Podcast Network. This episode of Muff Said and all the podcasts we do at Death Squad can always be found on our website, deathsquad.tv, and on iTunes under Death Squad. Are you shopping for some alpha brain, looking for some new mood? Do you take 5-HTP and you want some of the best 5-HTP out there? Go to onnit.com, ONNIT.com. Use the coupon code DEATHSQUAD to save yourself 10% off your order. It doesn't work on battle ropes or any of the fitness equipment. It's only for the supplements. Check out Alpha Brain. Check out New Mood. Check them out, and it has all the stuff, like all the science behind it. It breaks down what they all do to you and what it is. I love it. I love New Mood. That's my favorite. Check it out, onnit.com, coupon code DEATHSQUAD. If you want a Death Squad t-shirt, they're almost sold out. And you know what that means. Once they're gone forever. So if you haven't bought the new Death Squad t-shirt yet, go to shopsquad.tv. And there you have the Death Squad shirts and stickers. They're limited edition. Once they sell out, they're gone forever. Death Squad's coming to your town. Keep your eye out at deathsquad.tv for more information. We'll be in San Diego 12/12/12 at the American Comedy Co. Go to americancomedyco.com for more information. Also, we are coming to the Melrose Improv. Go to improv.com and click on Hollywood Improv. And we will also be doing a new weekly show at the Comedy Store every Monday. It starts December 3rd. Go to thecomedystore.com for more information. It's a free show, so it's the only free Death Squad.
I just can't hide it. I'm so excited because I have legendary Bob Layton in the studio. Woo! So I'm going to introduce him here in just a few minutes. For those of you that don't know, he kind of like reinvented Ironman. You know those 3 movies that were really huge and really, really amazing? Probably would not have come into existence without this man. So we're going to get to him in just a minute. And we also have back in the studio my favorite tech correspondent, Nick Ahrens. Mm-hmm. To open up the show, though, I want to talk books. Just this past week, we had an election, and those of us in California may know about Prop 37 that was on the ballot. Prop 37 got voted down, sadly. Prop 37 would require all genetically modified foods to be labeled on their packaging. Now, what's important about this is that Prop 37 required this labeling because 30 to 70% of the food that we already eat is genetically modified, and consumers are completely unaware of this fact. This got me thinking about one of my favorite sci-fi books of all time. It's a book called The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo, I'm going to mispronounce this, Basi Galupi. It's set in the 23rd century Thailand, and what it's based around is a biotechnology companies have taken over the world, and they have hacked all seeds, very similar to what Monsanto does. And our food and all seeds are now sterile and need to be purchased individually. You cannot save seeds, and seeds will never germinate again. And of course, all sorts of craziness happens. It was Time magazine listed as one of the top 9 science fiction novels of all time. So I think that you guys should read that over the holidays and think about genetically modified foods and what could happen in our future if we let these companies control our foods and what we put in our bodies. Okay.
Or Soylent Green.
Or Soylent Green. Yes, there are other books, but that's just one of my favorites. It's an extraordinary book. And speaking on books, I want to talk about a comic book that I read this week. I read Powers by Bendis and Omeging. can't say anything. I can't pronounce things today. Can someone else do my show? It's called Powers. The first book is called Who Killed Retro Girl. It combines two of my favorite things, and that is the edgier side of capes with crime noir. It's about a detective that who was a superhero, lost his powers, and then is now working as a homicide detective. The special edition is out in hardback, and for those of you that are watching, so this much of the book is this much of the book is the comic book, and this much is special features, and that's super amazing as a nerd.
Special features like behind the scenes photos and drawings and
like covers, sketch artists, like scripts, alternate covers. It's really comprehensive and very, 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 very exciting. You know why I think I'm nervous? I think I'm nervous because Bob Layton's in the studio. I think he's throwing me off my game.
It's not like we don't know each other. Come on.
But when I see you, I'm already drunk, so I've got
that helps.
courage.
That usually helps with anybody to meet you. Be drunk first.
You're a scary guy. You're an intimidating guy.
People say that. I don't understand that. Fuck you.
Dave Johnson is as intimidated by you.
No, it's not. No, that's
He's
not
not.
true.
He's not
That's
intimidated by you, but he looks up to you.
Yeah, well, a lot of the
You're
guys,
a living legend. So.
Well, a lot of the guys there, Dan Panosian and Dave, grew up reading my comics.
Yeah.
So to them, it's like that's the stuff they knew. That's the stuff that inspired them to become creators themselves. So that's the highest form of flattery in my opinion.
How does that feel?
It makes me feel old. That's what, Dick Giordano said to me at one point, because right after the first Ironman movie, I started getting that tag as you used, legend, in front of my name, and I go, how did that happen? He goes, it's a euphemism for old. So it's like, yeah, exactly. I feel very legendary right now.
Well, we are really happy to have you here. Let's talk about the beer of the week. So I have been looking for a beer to replace my favorite beer of all time, Saison de Boeuf, which was a collaboration between Liberty, Dogfish Head, and Stone. And so I was suggested to try this Lava Lake Wit, which is a wheat beer. And similar to the Saison de Boeuf, it has a lot of additives to it, so it gets its flavor from herbs that have been added into it. This is it's unmalted wheat. They added rolled oats. Rolled oats are added to beers for a creamier mouthfeel. Chamomile, orange peel, coriander, grains of paradise, and a rare yeast strain. So those of us that are sampling this beer, what do you think?
It's not bad. It's refreshing. It's definitely refreshing.
Yeah.
the can's pretty. It looks like a porn set.
Well, I really like this movement to putting beers back in cans because beers, when exposed to fluorescent lighting, can skunk, aka the chemical makeup of the beer can change when exposed to light and can lead to some unpleasant flavors. And keeping a beer in a can is the easiest way to prevent that from happening.
I can't taste, like, it doesn't taste alcoholic.
Yeah, it
tastes
like
really,
watery.
it's really thin tasting, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm getting kind of like a perfumey flavor on the tail of it.
Right. It smells like beer.
It does smell like beer, but it doesn't taste like beer.
It tastes like a extremely
Tastes
like light.
Like tea.
Yeah, that's
tastes like
actually-
green tea
Yeah,
or
it's an
something like
interesting. It's an interesting observation.
I don't think I would go with this.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. So another poor choice in beer. Lava Lake Wit tastes perfumey and like green tea and not alcoholic at all.
Well, I will say the last few beer selections have been really out there. They've been really like interesting, kind of crazy beers. They're not safe beers, which is it's kind of cool that people are trying this stuff.
Well, I keep purchasing these non-safe beers, and so because I'm looking for that one Saison de Boeuf, that one really out there beer that I think is amazing. And in the process, of course, you got to drink a lot of
Meh.
Skunky bears.
Yeah.
I hate skunky beer. That's why I'm not a huge fan of Heineken, because it's kind of skunky.
Rolling Rock is like the worst Heineken.
Yeah.
It's like Rolling Rock reminds me of like a cereal that's gone stale or something like that. It's really bad.
Well, speaking of booze, I actually just want to
Booze?
jump into. We can talk about those later too. It is that kind of show. I want to jump back to Bob Layton. I have a question for you because your Ironman story, Demon in a Bottle, just recently was voted one of the top 20 comic stories of all time. But in the movie, they didn't even address the alcoholism or even... in fact, you see Iron Man drinking alcohol on a couple of occasions. Why do you think those choices were made?
I know exactly why it was made. Because I was there.
This is why I asked.
They skirted around it in Iron Man 2. You know, I mean, where they had Tony go on a drunk, you know, and he wound up trashing his own place and all that kind of stuff. When I initially met Robert Downey Jr., we talked for 90 minutes when I first got on the set about the first movie and about, his, he was really concerned whether I approved of his performance, which is crazy, right?
Well, do you?
Oh, of course. I told him the truth. I was straight up with him. I just said, you were a little older than I depicted him in the comics, but you knocked it out of the park, dude. What do you're Tony Stark. Let's face it, But he was generally concerned. He had read every single comic I had ever done. He knew the stuff backwards and forwards. It was pretty amazing, actually. But we talked about Demon in a Bottle specifically. I think that's one of the reasons why he signed on, because let's face it, it's almost semi-autobiographical. I have some history with alcohol myself, so it's something that we talked. That's why I'm not drinking a beer with you guys.
That's what I
you can drink your weedy beer all you want.
You're not missing out.
No, exactly. And I know that one of the reasons that he came on board to do the part was he was kind of hoping to do that story. But to my understanding and talking with Favreau always felt it was too dark for the franchise, because if you know the first two movies, they like to keep it pretty lighthearted. And I think it was one of those things where I could see the two of them kind of bumping heads a little bit over that, because I know that's someplace RJ wanted to go and someplace John. Now that John's not there, who knows what's going to be in the third one. I have no idea. I don't have any association with them anymore. I left Marvel about 6 months ago. So.
And you did to work on a brand new comic book, which you just brought me a copy of.
Yes. Which is actually not a brand new comic in a way.
Okay. So tell me about it.
Well, Colony was one of the really early web comics that used to run on my website.
Which is boblayton.com.
Right. Thank you. Wow, that wasn't even a cheap plug. That was just a straight out plug.
We're big hoes. It's
okay, that's right. So am I. Anyway, so this was actually something I had pitched in Hollywood first, and I kept. There's in the introduction, it explains that when you go out, when all your audience goes out and buys a copy of it at a comic shop near you. But I kept running into this wall where people just couldn't envision what I was trying to pitch. So, and at that point, my mentor and dear friend Dick Giordano was kind of semi-retired, and we always wanted to work together. We were too busy running companies. We never got a chance to actually work together on projects. So later in his life, when he moved to Florida, I was living in Florida at the time myself. We decided to start working on a couple of projects. We did a couple of Batmans together and stuff like that. And I approached him about the idea. It's like, well, let's just do the book and show people that it's not too big. It can be done. It's like, because it's a fairly epic story, right? So we started doing 5-page increments every month and releasing it free to the audience right there, on the website. And it ran for years, I think from 2006 to 2009. And then what happened was we got to about page 205 and Dickie got ill. He was suffering from chronic leukemia, which is a treatable kind. But as a result, he was undergoing chemotherapy and stuff like that. So we kind of suspended the thing. But it had a huge audience. At one point, it was getting 600,000 hits a month.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like it built up over time. I hadn't realized that we had built that kind of international audience with it, but apparently, I guess when it's free, everybody shows up.
Right.
So anyway, so I suspended publication of the thing while Dickie got well, and then he got back on his feet, and he was able to finish the last 45 pages. I had finished the whole plot, but Then he developed pneumonia and a complication to pneumonia, and he wound up dying in March of 2010. So it was, he was like my father. I mean, he was, I never had a father, and Dickie I've known since I was 18 years old. He kind of took me under his wing really early. So it was one of those things where it took me about a year before I could sit down and ink and finish the rest of that book, because every time I'd start to do it, I started thinking about him, and because I spent the last 10 days of his life in the ICU with him, sleeping in a chair, Mm-hmm. So, because I think the worst thing you could ever do is die alone,
Absolutely, yeah.
And he was he was great, and he kept his spirits up. He was a terrific man, Not to get all emotional and down here.
Sometimes people that are very, very sick, I've experienced people dealing with long illnesses myself, and they develop this very zen quality about them. Just very focused. It's really beautiful to be around.
He was always a very courageous guy, even for a chubby little Italian, who was hard of hearing. But he was an amazing guy. And anyway, so Colony, I finally finished it and published it through IDW. Mm-hmm. With help from my friend Skip Farrell, who was the publisher of Future Comics. That's why it has the Future Comics logo on it. So you get a shot of that there? Okay, there you go. So it's available now at a comic shop near you. And it's, like I said, it's a grand epic story, something I never got a chance to do in comics, in terms of one long story with a beginning and an end. So, to me it was, and it was unrated, I always had a PG rated career. As you know, that's why I always draw tits and ass when I'm at Drink and Draw, because I always had to keep everything clean my entire career. And so, like, when I go to Drink and Draw, all I draw is girls. Cause,
I want to see this.
Oh, yeah. Well, Ryan's seen a bunch of them. Yeah,
he's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Do you see yourself doing, obviously this is, a work of love and a passion project and something that can never be replicated. But do you see yourself maybe partnering up with some other people and doing more epic stories, more unrated stories?
Well, my interest in the comic medium is limited to how it translates into other mediums. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why I'm out here in Hollywood now, because I left comics about 4 years ago. This was just a project, like I said, that was on the back burner that had to be done. But the trouble with independent comics in general, even something like that, is that you bust your ass to do it. You raise the money, you kickstart it, you do whatever you can to get it out there. It sells about 15,000 copies and dies on the vine. Then if somebody in Hollywood comes up and options it, they go out and they make a shitty movie out of it because they're not going to listen to you. They give you some money to pay you off. They go do whatever. And they kill whatever property you've... Basically, they put out a shitty movie, and there's the end of your property forever. It's like you can't ever sell it anywhere else or have any hope of doing anything else with it. And it just seems like a bad business model to me.
Tell me about The Huntress.
Well, I wasn't done with that. Are we gonna? Is this like short attention span theater here?
This is ADD podcast.
ADD podcast. No, the point is,
this
we'll get back to it.
Very specifically ties into what you're talking
about.
All right,
no, but we'll get back to what I was saying in a minute then, because I was trying to say that I'm trying to create a new business model for creating independent comics. In the meantime, yes, the Huntress was something that I co-created with Paul Levitz and Joe Staten when I was doing All-Star Comics back in the 70s, which I don't want to... I did comics in the 70s. And I was doing All-Star, which was the Justice Society book. And, we had this idea for doing, I forget how it came up. It was in a plot meeting or whatever with Paul Levitz that we came up with the idea of doing Batman's daughter, Batman and Catwoman's illegitimate daughter,
which is the most amazing concept ever.
Yeah, and it's like she turned out to be kind of popular, in the series, at least at the time. But what's really great about the Huntress was, and I equate it to like having a hooker that never ages. Because like I said, we came up with this concept 30 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. And I keep getting royalties on her for 30 years. She's out in the street making me money, pimping that ass. And when she was on Birds of Prey, the TV series, a short-lived TV series, about 10 years ago or so, and you know, suddenly I got these like huge royalty checks in the mail, you know, and I'm like, wow, you know, this is great. So yeah, my bitch never get old. She's still out there working. And apparently she's coming up on the end of the month here, the late November episodes of Arrow, the new CW Green Arrow series. I don't know if she's going to be a regular character or not. I don't know much about it. I'm not involved with it per se, but it's always great to have something you created. I mean, there's so many things that I've created. They're still out there alive today, which makes me feel good. I mean, the whole Ironman thing and Valiant being reborn for the 6th time, you know. But you know, these are all characters I created that are still out there and still doing. But Huntress is my bitch. I love her. She keeps making me money, and it's like I don't have to do anything. It's great.
So in some aspects, some elements of the industry do work. For example, the Huntress is still working for you, but not all properties. That doesn't happen with all properties.
No, I mean I don't get a cent from Ironman. You know, even though
you completely revamped Ironman.
Well, you know how that happened, right? Because Dave McElwain and I, we fled D.C. during the implosion there in the 70s, went over to Marvel, and we were just fledglings. They didn't know who the hell we were. And we got the book because they had like 3 books they were going to cancel, and they figured they'd give it to the 2 new guys because we couldn't hurt it. They said, yeah, we're going to cancel in 6 months, so which one you wanted? And I begged Dave to take Iron Man. And, because I mean, when I was a kid, I used to make my own Iron Man comics. I always thought the comics sucked. I always thought it was a great idea that just sucked in execution, And so, the fact that I could get my hands on it and make it look like metal, and make Tony Stark cool, because to me, if I had a choice between being Iron Man and being Tony Stark, I'd rather be Tony Stark any day. I mean, that's why we did whole stories where Iron Man never appeared in the book because he didn't have to. I mean, Tony Stark's the coolest fucker on the planet, right? So, and if a lot of times he could solve things without having to become Iron Man, So yeah, Dave and I just proceeded to redesign. We killed the supporting cast, and we brought in an entire new supporting cast. Created that rock star persona for Tony Stark. Created the Hall of Iron with all the various Iron Man armors and stuff. The whole variant armor was something that I brought in from an old Batman story that Bob Kane did. There was an old Batman annual where I remember as a kid reading it. And it was all the amazing costumes of Batman, and he had a green one for hiding in trees. He had a white one for hiding in snow. It was the dumbest ass story in the world, right? But it stuck in my head. It's well, okay, great idea, wrong character.
Right.
It's if you're going to have variant, costumes or whatever like that. Iron Man seemed to be the guy that because if there's a big difference between a stock car and a rail. And it's like. Things have specific tasks. Machines have specific tasks. And so it seemed to me the armor should have specific tasks, too. So we created them. We created, Justin Hammer and Rhodey and the whole cast of characters that from the movies now,
That's amazing. This is probably a really offensive question to ask, but Iron Man versus Bruce Wayne, who's going to win?
Well, you mean Iron Man? You mean Tony Stark versus... Tony Stark would.
Yes.
I mean,
Tony Stark versus Bruce Wayne and Iron Man versus Batman.
Well, I mean, Bruce Wayne's, is like a psychotic. I mean, so we'll give him that. Tony's kind of a little more, happy-go-lucky than him. So, if it's a knife fight, I don't know. But, but Tony Stark was trained by Captain America. So, who the hell knows? My money's always on Tony Stark for anything, basically, Because that was one of the things that we tried to create with the character. That's why one of the most important things that David Michelini and I stressed in Demon in a Bottle was that Tony Stark always wins. He always finds a way to win. He finds somehow to get out of the situation or find solutions. He's a problem solver, even when it comes to his own life. And, I mean, we did the alcohol thing because, he had 2 heart attacks per issue. For 20 years. I mean, the only guy who's done that is Dick Cheney, so it's and lived. And plus at that particular era in the late 70s, early 80s, the heart transplants became fairly common. And it just seemed why doesn't he just get a heart transplant? It's you get, and boom, the end, right? He takes his meds and all's great. He goes back to screwing the world, right? So it seemed to me that we needed to create an internal conflict with him, a vulnerability that fit the international corporate intrigue thing that we were creating with the the Stark International and all that. So that's kind of where it came from.
It's also kind of it's a very unique and interesting kind of weakness for a superhero, because traditionally superheroes, their weaknesses are supposed to be as epic as their strengths, whereas Tony Stark's weakness can be just a bottle of alcohol, which is it's just a little bit more interesting, a little bit more humanizing than kind of your average weakness for a superhero.
The whole idea of a superhero with some self-destructive tendencies, I thought was interesting, especially in that particular era. It's not so much a big deal now.
It's a huge deal in that era, and I, in many ways, think that it's spawned maybe even a book like Powers and other books that have gone on that show superheroes as fallible, more complex characters.
No, I told Downey that it was a cry for help. I mean, I was a raging alcoholic when I did that book. Honest to God. And it was like, I said it was like my own little personal cry for help. You know, it's like, most people don't know that, but I'm confessing that here, you know?
When you're a raging alcoholic and you're drawing, is there like the booty call version of what, you know, like, is there something you would do? Like, you're like, I can't believe I gave Ironman.
No. I never, what I did was, I was always kind of a maintenance drinker. I just kept a mild buzz on.
Right.
I never got sloppy drunk. Most of the people around me, it's like Dickie never even knew I had an alcohol problem till I got sober. You know, it was just one of those kind of things where I maintained an even strain, but I can't remember a single day I wasn't, down in a fifth of vodka, but I just did it nice and slow and measured. And, I was kind of like a housewife drinker,
Right, like the wine.
Yeah, but I always kept a buzz on, as I had my coffee in the morning and the little screwdriver because the orange juice would negate the vodka, of course.
Right, of course. Perfect balance, 50-50.
Yeah. So that's why Downey and I had a great time, because we were talking about, being young and stupid and drunk in New York City, something we had in common too. It's like, but yeah, it's been 25 years for me, so.
Congratulations.
This is a
That's
long time.
huge.
Yeah, it's like, as you know, I hang out with drunks every Thursday night, so it doesn't really bother me, I'm fine. I met with a producer here about a week ago who's been sober for about 25 years, and I guess it's a real struggle in Hollywood, for a lot of people, because the pressures and everything like that.
But there's also a very strong sober community in Hollywood as well.
That's true.
And particularly, like MAPS is an amazing program for musicians.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, for me, it's kind of like I kind of dealt with the issues that I had, and as you know, I'm not exactly inhibited, generally speaking. And I found one of the things I found out in therapy was that, if I just basically get rid of my inhibitions, I get rid of my need to drink. So, yeah, I've been pretty much the same guy ever since. It's kind of like I don't really need any of that. But, so Tony Stark and his little struggles is something that's kind of personal to me, and to Downey. That's why I'm hoping that they get a chance to. He gets a chance to do. I know he wants to do that story.
I think it'll happen at some point.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. I have faith in it. I mean, it's such an iconic story. Are there any other storylines that you really took from your own life, like the demon in a bottle story?
Actually, it's true. Nobody knows this, but there was a sequence in our second run of Ironman where Tony Stark is stalked by a woman and finally shot and crippled by her. And this is actually Dave Michelini actually took that inspiration from a woman who was stalking me. And because I had this chick seriously stalk me. It's like where she would show up banging on my door. I'd be like balling some chick in my bedroom, and she'd be knocking on the window at 3:00 in the morning. It's like, get out of there, he's mine, kind of thing.
My favorite thing about this show is that my show has been. It's really been dispelling the myth that nerds don't get laid.
Oh, honey, I always kept my both feet and my penis in the real world. It's like I don't think I was always kind of one of those comic geeks. You go back and look at my career, and you'll see that I'm generally well dressed, and I function pretty well in the real world. Something Dickie imparted to me that it was my job, not a hobby. And the point is, I was professional.
How has comic book culture changed from then to now?
Well, it's basically the inmates run the asylum now, when I started, you got to remember, there was like the old school Marvel guys. It was John Verporten up there, and Romita, and Kirby, and And these guys it was a business to them. I mean, it was their job. I mean, they used to come to work with like ties and white shirts on and stuff, it was a job, and we got paid such shitty wages that's why Kirby did 5 books a month. Was the only way he could afford to feed his family. I mean, people don't realize that. They say, why did you sell all those Iron Man covers? Because my covers to the original Iron Man series sell for like $40,000 a piece now. I probably sold them for $200 at the time. Well, it's because I got $45 a page for inking. Living in New York City. I mean, the only way I could keep myself in cocaine, booze, and a roof over my head was to sell the originals. So it was. I'm joking about the cocaine, but well, occasionally. But
that a boy.
That was the only way you could keep yourself alive, was to sell the originals. Because we got paid shit. We did it it was like old football players that played with leather helmets. We did it for love of the game. No one ever thought we'd get rich. If you had told me in '79 when I'd started Ironman that it was going to wind up being a series of multi-billion-dollar movies, I would have laughed in your face, or I wouldn't have signed those damn release checks. Because they did that illegal shit. Where they put the release on the back of the check, so the only way you could get paid was to sign away your rights to everything.
Wow.
That's what that whole Gary Friedrich mess was about. It's totally fucked up. I don't even think it's not ethical. That's for sure. No. But I mean, Gary Friedrich tried to sue them, and not only did he lose, but Marvel countersued him for like $17,000 or some kind of shit like that. So I mean, it's like it's one of those things where their lawyers are bigger than any lawyer I'm going to get. So there's no way to really fight it. But yeah, was it unethical? Absolutely. But Marvel's always been that way. That's why one of the reasons why I quit them. The reason I quit, kind of in a huff, about 6 months ago or longer, was I went to England for the first time and attended a convention over there last February, and found out that Marvel had been reprinting my material there since the '80s without paying me a cent.
That's incredible.
I mean, bound volumes and graphic novels and. Not only that, but then, I go to Australia, I go to France, places, and I see my work everywhere. Now, DC pays foreign royalties. They pay merchandising, too. How many times have you seen that Iron Man 126 figure, on a piece of merchandising? DC pays. Marvel doesn't. Marvel's always been contemptuous on the business side. And when I realized that, they've screwed me out of hundreds of thousands of dollars in royalties, that they just should be paying. I mean, they're making hand over fist. I just said, and excuse me, audience, I said, fuck them. They're never getting another thing out of me as long as I live. Not until I get some kind of compensation for all those reprints that are being done. It's just, I did this work for almost free anyway. And it's just like, if I'm going to exploit me, I'll do it. I don't need to have it done. But, I mean, plus their competence level, since especially now that they're all corporate and stuff, is ridiculous. The last series I did for them, which never got published, apparently, was I went through 3 editorial changes. It was just a 4-issue miniseries. Went through 3 editorial changes, and the last guy came on was some kid, I can't remember his name now. It was Skippy McNugget or something.
Sounds about right.
And he had never heard of me. He said, but somebody told him I had something to do with Iron Man, so he presumed I knew what I was doing.
Wow.
Yeah, and at that point, I'm kind of like, you can't go home again. Tom Wolfe was right. You can't go home again. And it's like the Marvel that I worked at, that Frank Miller worked at, and that Walt Simonson worked at, and Byrne and Claremont worked at, isn't there anymore. It's just it's like a corporate machine that pumps out units sold in order to meet their numbers for the quarterly statements. That's and I just more power to them. I don't hate them. I mean it's like it's business. But I don't want to be part of it anymore. I mean, I just don't want to be part of that machine anymore. I don't want to be part of exploiting myself.
Tell me about this new business model that you think will be more fair to comic book artists.
Well, no, it's not necessarily to comic book artists. More fair to me. Well, I don't really consider myself an artist. I'm a storyteller. Mm-hmm. I've always been involved in the creation of the story as well.
The characters, the stories,
David Michelini and I hooked up together at DC, like 77, I think. And, Dave recognized that I had a great idea machine in my head, and, he chose to exploit it. which means he's a smart guy. So we started collaborating on everything we did together. So we just decided at that point we would just create a team. And so I've always been involved in the story. And then, I branched out and did my solo career with Hercules and with X Factor and stuff like that. But
does being involved in the story, does that garner you extra cash?
Well, yeah, you get paid for it. I mean, I didn't get plot money for Ironman. I didn't care about that. We didn't make enough money to be haggling over the $5 they would have given me for my plot input. But that wasn't the point. That was a labor of love. I said we did it for love of the game. It was never about the money.
Yeah.
But but then, as you know, I went on to become editor in chief of Valiant Comics. And then I started Future Comics. I've always been trying to change the business model. And Future Comics, we started our own internet distribution. It was like to bypass Diamond, the monopoly evil empire there that takes 60% of your cover price, before you even get off the ground.
Wow,
so,
that makes Apple look nice.
Yeah, no, no, exactly.
That's crazy.
The point is, what you don't realize about independent publishing is like if you're going to try to put out a comic. Now, the average comic sells 15,000 copies. I know you look at the sales, you hear, this latest issue of Avengers sold, 100,000 copies. Iron Man used to sell 400,000 copies a month when Dave and I were doing it, when it was still 35 cents or something like that. I mean, but if you take the 300 comics that are published a month and you average it out, the average comic sells 15,000. I think when I was publishing, break even was somewhere around 15 or 20. So the best that most comics are doing are just breaking even. If there's a bunch of them, like there's 40 of them or so that are actually making some money, well, hallelujah. But that's really not the case. Most comics are loss leaders. They're basically an inroad to merchandising and licensing and so forth and so on. The trouble is, if you're an independent publisher, who are you going to go to get it distributed? You go to Diamond, right? Diamond immediately, if they'll take you, and a lot of times they decide whether or not they want to share rack space because they're going to protect DC and Marvel and the rack space that they have there. If you get in there, they immediately take 60% off your cover price. All right? So then after you deal with your costs and printing and all that kind of crap, I mean, you're lucky you're not on a poor farm or something by the end of it. It's almost impossible to make money publishing. Now, for an independent guy. Now, there are companies like IDW and Image or whatever that creates a sort of co-op system where, you can get your book out there, but it's still only going to sell about 15,000 if you're lucky. All right? So, if comics are a loss leader, the trick is to get out of the business side of comics. And so one of the things I'm working on out here is to create properties from the ground up that can be movies or television shows and comic books simultaneously. That way the collars and cuffs match,
Would you see something like, would you put something like Kick-Ass in that category? Because I know that Kick-Ass, the comic book, was pretty much coming out and being written as a script was being developed and the movie was in development.
Well, it's a good model. But see, my trick is, okay, that wasn't necessarily an independent comic, though. That was through the auspices of Marvel, was it not? But
so you're saying to create original stories regardless of the medium from the ground up.
Yeah, but the idea,
and nurture it across all distribution platforms equally.
So here's what I'm doing out here. Okay, right now the test model, the very first one, is the movie Shambler, which we go into production in the spring in Utah.
Is this the one with the very exciting star?
No. This is the Mummy movie. This is the Mummy horror comedy movie where he's wrapped in crime scene tape.
Nice.
It's kind of like a modern day version of the Mummy, and the tagline is he's a walking crime scene. And it's there's no Egyptian stuff or anything like that. I just wanted to create like a modern Mummy, but I love horror comedies. Just absolutely
Shaun
adore
of the
them.
Dead.
Slither. James
man.
Gunn is great. And so Mikolai and I found a producer out here who was interested in developing something from the ground up. This is Anne-Marie Gillen, whose most famous work, weirdly enough, was Fried Green Tomatoes, the ultimate chick flick. So she's gone from that to doing the Shambler, right?
It's probably a reaction, like a response.
I think what it is I make her laugh, and she likes that. And so we came up with a really fun concept, And the idea is, here's the business model side of it. The idea is, okay, so the cost of comics are basically, they will deter you from actually doing them because, like you said, you can't really make money at it. So my idea was to roll the cost of the comic into the advertising budget of the film.
That's genius.
That way the comic becomes a loss leader. The studios can literally give the comic away if they want. Or they can sell it or whatever like that. But the idea is the cost of doing the comic is part of the advertising budget. So that way I don't have to scrape up the money. I don't have to sit there and beg for money on Kickstart. I don't have to do any kind of stuff. Basically, the studio pays for the comic. They use it as a loss leader to get the word out about the character, to do the movie adaptation. So when we get closer to the release of Shambler, we will put out like a 4 or 5 issue miniseries that will adapt the movie and have all the scenes that we cut out in it and all that kind of fun stuff. And if it does well, then we'll do more Shambler stories as it goes down the road. But I'm doing the same thing with a project I'm working on with Edward James Olmos.
I'm so excited that you're talking about this because I love Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I'm a giant Galactica fan. And it's so funny. I've become friends with many of the people on the show.
Katie Sackhoff?
They are now. I only met Katie once, but I'm really good friends with Jamie Bamber, and I
didn't know he was British.
Oh,
After
me
watching
either.
that show.
First time,
it blew my mind.
The first time I met him, I plotzed. Because
his American accent is so good.
It's perfect.
Oh, it blew my mind.
It did. It killed me when I first met him. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, he is seriously limeyed out.
Maybe the British accent's like really fake though. Maybe he has.
That's what I felt like when I saw like special scene stuff. I was like, what? It blew my mind.
I got to tell you, what's really great though is the difference between a lot of those ensemble cast shows or whatever. They worship Ed. All of them love Ed and Mary like they were mom and dad.
Yep.
And I think what Ed did was he elevated the level of acting and writing and everything on that show. It seems like everybody was trying to do better and better every episode.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think the level was so high on that show. I mean, as a writer, I watch some of those episodes and I'm just blown away by the quality of writing for a television series.
It's too
Season
bad
3?
that it's too bad that so many people are afraid to watch a show because of the sci-fi nature. Because that show is the acting and the writing on that show is still. I mean, it's getting better and better in television right now.
Yeah.
But it's still leaps and bounds above
I
most
told
shows.
Jamie the first time we met because we were actually working on an idea for a television show for the BBC together, and I said, you did a soliloquy when you were playing a lawyer on Galactica where you were defending Baltar, and I said it was just one of the most incredible. It was a really long speech, but I said it was just amazing. I mean, because you're thinking about it, it's a pretty boring scene generally, but the intensity of your character and the words that were coming out of its character's mouth, I said, were just blew me away. I said it's just one of those most memorable scenes that I from the whole series. Where he basically defends a guy who's accused of mass murder, and it's just, but that's the nature of the show.
Yeah.
But you meet all the guys like Richard Hatch and Jamie and everybody, and they're all they're super awesome. I guess most of them because they're still working too.
It was actually awesome to see almost all of those actors. A lot of times when a big TV show ends, you just kind of don't hear from them again. But all those actors just started popping up everywhere. Like, right away.
I finally got to meet James Callis. I went to the premiere of Philly Brown a few weeks back before I left for Australia, which was Michael Olmos, Ed's son, his latest movie. So they had a big premiere over The Egyptian, and so I went. I wanted to see the damn movie because Michael and I are working on this new movie with Ed, and Philly Brown kept getting in the way all the time. So I was saying, okay, let me go see this sucker and see what is this. I've been cock blocking my story for so long, but when I was there, the entire cast of Battlestar Galactica came.
That's awesome.
I don't think I could handle that much excitement.
And Jamie was the only one. James Callis was the only one I hadn't met, and I just went up to him and just kind of gave him a little hug, and I just said, "Man, I've been wanting to meet you for so long. Everybody says all the rest of the gang talk about how great you are. And he's like a super sweet guy, and Ed loves him. I mean, Ed adores him, and it was like finally he was like my last one I got to meet. He was like, but they're all great, and they all just look up to Ed like he was like a father figure or something.
He was for.
It's funny that you mentioned that because every time I watched that show and he would give like an epic Adama speech where you're like, yes, I'd be like, he would be the greatest father in the history of mankind.
But but you know,
But he wasn't.
Of course he wasn't. He was human, which was the best part about it.
But the funny thing is, Ed is so opposite that. Ed is one of the just goofiest guys in the world. I mean, he's a jokester. He's a funny guy. And I mean,
and then he brings the thunder.
I am so privileged to work with him and his son Michael. You know, in this project Metal.
Tell us all about it, because we all want to.
Metal is Ed wants to do for superheroes what he did for science fiction with Battlestar. Basically, he kind of wants to deconstruct the whole superhero genre a bit. And this is a pet project he's been wanting to get off the ground for a long time. And he's gone to several writers and had some false starts and stuff like that. And while Michael was shooting Philly Brown, I was visiting the set. That's how I met Jamie. He had a walk on in the thing. But so Michael and I were hanging out, and we started discussing this movie Metal, Mettle, and it was kind of like I went home and I thought about it for a while, and I basically went back to the set the next day and I said I got an idea, and I gave Michael the pitch, and he took it back to Ed, and Ed loved it. So, you know, because one of the things in comics that they never really deal with is post-traumatic stress syndrome. Spider-Man gets into a giant fight and gets the shit kicked out of him. And the next episode, boom, he's back. You know, next issue, he's back like nothing happened or whatever.
They touch on it a little bit in one of the new 52 comics. But
Right.
again, they're just now touching on it.
In Metal, Ed is a character was a hero 20 years ago. And basically he's since in his life has fallen to ruin because of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And
going up a serious bad guy with like flamethrowers or
he was critically wounded.
eyeballs.
I mean, in the movie, he's shot in the head. You know, so he's been suffering a lot of chronic things. And Eddie, he'll play the shit out of this. You know, in fact, I mean, when I'm about 2/3 of the way through the first draft of the script, and Ed barely has lines in the movie. You know, it's one of those things where I just need him to sit there and seethe. You know, and let everybody else kind of do the talking. I mean, that's a great thing about writing for Ed. Is just like you just know all Ed has to do is give you that look. You know, and boom, you're there. So and then basically the story is the forces that caused his critical injury raises their ugly head 20 years later, and he has to face them all fucked up. So it's kind of like, and it's about the road he takes to finding himself again. You know, the mettle of a man, and that's what it's about.
That humanity in a larger than life character is, I think, what makes shows like Battlestar Galactica so great. They're in space. It's the future, and there's robots and spaceships and
That's
lasers.
not what it's about.
It's not exactly. And that's what's so great about it. But they do the conversations are just human conversations.
So the question that runs through Metal is what makes a hero? You know. What makes a hero different than everyone else? And that's the question we answer in that, and like I said, it's a real designer piece for Ed. And I'm like I said, I'm just such a thrill to work with him on that. And then the other project, and we're going to do a comic of it too. Metal will be a comic as well. Plus there are, there's a whole backstory that we can't do in the movie that we could do in the comic. So we'll have some fun with that, but that's part of that. And then I'm working on a project with Dane Cook.
I talked to him last night. Are you allowed to
really?
talk about the project?
You know DC?
Yeah. It's at the Improv, and we talked a little bit about. We talked about. He gets so much hate as a comic, like so many people.
Well, you met him, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's not to hate?
And he's right, but he's like the nicest guy in the room.
Oh, he is. He absolutely.
But he's just if it's not jealousy, if it's not people not liking his style comedy or what, he just constantly, even his own family stealing money from him. And it's like this guy gets the only break he gets is hot chicks.
No, DC says that
the only break I get is I get lots of very attractive pussy. Other than that, my life is shit.
No, he and I talked about that, and the fact, because I said, wow, you got 3 million followers on Twitter. He said, yeah, but half of them hate me. It's like, yeah, it's true. And it's right. I mean, because I think about it. I mean, I used to get tons of hate mail too.
What would be the themes of your hate mail?
Basically, that I just ruined comics, in general. It's like that kind of stuff. It's like, I was a traitor because I went to Valiant, or
angry comic nerds.
Yeah, angry comic nerds. But I mean, I get one or two guys like would write me just like serial guys just talking about that I suck and I am I don't deserve to live and all that kind of stuff. Jesus. Not so much anymore. I get a lot. They're being nicer to me now that I'm a legend. But so anyway, Dana and I met at the Ironman 2 premiere, and turned out that he was a big comic book nerd, which I really shocked the shit out of me. And so we actually started hanging out, and so one of the things that we talked about was him making a transition to doing other kind of roles, and one of them is I think that Dane would be a great action star because he's funny. He's
super fit.
He's super fit, right?
Yeah. He's tall.
He's good. Women love him. And it's kind of like to me, it's like I think would be a great change up for him at this point in his career. So I came up with a concept for him, pitched it to him. He really liked it. We've been banging on it. I finished the first draft of the script. I was supposed to go up there tomorrow, but he canceled out on me, the fucker. So I'm going to meet with him on Monday. So we're just walking through the script now, basically making changes on it, and then I do I do the second draft, and then we're off. That's
great. Now, why have you quit Twitter?
I never was on Twitter. What happened was when I first started my WME, when I was still being managed by them, just decided I should be on Twitter. Mm. So they started a Twitter account for me. I find it tedious. Right. Because, it's like, wow, I eat biscuits. It's like, who gives a fuck,
Right. You would be surprised.
Right. Bob Layton is a biscuit-eating motherfucker. It's like, no, who cares? It's almost like Facebook when people say, I'm going to walk today. It's like, well, good, don't trip. It's like...
It's a good, effective tool for stalking, though. It's
right, but
it's very effective.
The point of it is, I've always been a very private guy, and it goes back to what you were saying, because you were saying about getting laid and stuff, as a cartoonist. I mean, most of my friends are not comic book people. I mostly hang out with civilians because I just find it more refreshing for me not to be talking about 24/7 all the time. It's like
you don't want to talk.
My best friend Jenny, who lives here in town. Jersey girl, lover. You probably met her at Drink and Draw. I mean, I still don't think she knows what I do for a living. Exactly. She's like my best friend. But it's kind of like, I think it's important it's a job. And, it's like your personal life and what you do with yourself shouldn't be about comics or science fiction, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't even read the shit when I'm relaxing. You know what I mean? I read like nonfiction and stuff.
What are you reading right now?
What? Actually, I'm not reading anything at the moment because I'm writing. I when I'm working on a script, I don't do much else. You're lucky I bathed and shaved today just to come in for this thing.
I feel really, really
honored.
honored.
In fact, I had my last girlfriend. I was working on my first script for the Almoses, which was called The Helix, which hasn't been made yet. But she would call me like every night at 10 o'clock, and I'm like, not now. I'm on Jupiter. Because the story took place around Jupiter or whatever, and it was just kind of like because when I get into that world that I'm creating, I don't come out until I'm done, and because everything I'm thinking about is related to all the permutations of that character and the situation that I put them in. So it's a pretty intense process. It's an intense emotional process for me. So once I'm in, I rarely come out for anything, and then when I come out, the last thing I want to do is talk about all this shit. I want to
talk about anything else.
Anything else. Football. I love football. So I talk about football. Yeah, I'm a football junkie. Unfortunately, I'm a Jets fan, so that means I'm doomed to disappointment for the rest of my life.
You can see me. I'm literally wincing at him talking about sports.
I'm not talking about sports specifically, just in general.
That's enough to make me nervous.
Well, that's all we're going to talk. That's all we're going to talk about
from now on. You're taking over the podcast.
But I'm just saying, like I said, it's part of my being a normal guy.
It is, but your podcast, your website is still just comic focused. Do you think you want to expand?
Well, you know why? Because I haven't updated it. If you look at it since 2010.
I was looking at this and I was all like, Bob creates superheroine for Cinemax Femme Fatale.
Oh, I did that though. Did you see that episode?
No, I didn't. But it sounds
Libra.
I'm seeing pictures of it and it looks very sexy.
Well, of course, it's femme fatales. It's softcore porn. Actually, a friend of mine, Steve Crozier, Scro as I call him, he used to buy original art from me all the time. He'd buy commissions and things like that. And when I moved out here, he found out he just lived near me. Well, when he started producing this show, Femme Fatales, for Cinemax, he started harassing me about doing a superheroine episode. And I was kind of like, well, it's softcore porn. I don't want to do that. It's like,
I'm from Marvel.
no, it's just that I just didn't want to do it. But, he kept pursuing me on the thing. And finally, they had a wrap party for season 1 in San Francisco at WonderCon. And he invited me to the little banquet that they had there, and they had people from HBO and Cinemax, and they had some of the actors there. And I pretty much got peer pressured into doing it.
Badgered, goaded, harassed.
So I agreed to do it. Unfortunately, what you saw on the screen is not the episode I wrote.
Okay.
Basically, the network loved it so much they decided to expand it to an hour for the first 2-part episode they ever did. But they didn't have money to pay me, so they got one of the producers to rewrite it.
Oh.
So I took my name off of it. I took, but it was a fun experience. I just had lunch with Scro yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we're still friends.
And you got to, be involved in tits and ass.
Yeah, well, it was being there on the set or whatever. It was kind of fun. I won't lie to you. And Rob Burnett, the director, is a really terrific guy. And so, it was an experience. I mean, I pursued television much because there just seems to be too many chefs in that pot.
Yeah.
And, the independent film route is much more interesting to me, so, and I think some of the best films done are being done by independent people.
What are some of your favorite independent films?
Recently, Ruby Sparks.
Ruby Sparks.
Have you seen Ruby Sparks?
I have not seen Ruby Sparks.
Go see Ruby Sparks. You can get it now on pay-per-view, or I think it's available on rental, but it's a terrific indie film.
A novelist struggling with writer's block finds romance in the most unusual way by creating a female character he thinks will love him, then willing her into existence.
She comes to life.
So it's like a
modern day
weird
Pygmalion.
science.
Yeah.
Mannequin.
Yeah, but it's the gal who stars in it, the granddaughter of Elia Kazan, I believe, wrote the movie. Zoe Kazan, and she wrote it and stars in it, and she's like 24 years old or something.
Wow.
The bitch. Because it's so good. I mean, it's really terrific. Well done. I would recommend it. See, to me, though, that's a vision. Somebody has a vision, and they're able to execute it without the studio stepping on them, give them a robot dog and a tutu, all that kind of horse shit. I mean, it's like, because I'm so sick of robot porn, or monster porn. You go to the movies, and it's like... you watch the Hulk, and it's basically 2 giant thyroid monsters fucking each other for the last 20 minutes of the movie. Or even the Iron Man's guilty of that. It's all just robot porn at the end. Or the Transformers. I defy you to tell who's fucking who in that. I mean, it's just, to me, it's kind of sad because it's become Mike Vosberg, who does a lot of storyboards, who comes to Drink Control. He made an interesting observation a couple of weeks ago. He said movies have become experience-driven and not story-driven. That people remember the big explosion or the giant gobbledygook metal lizard that's going to devour New York before the Avengers come in.
The CG, they mentioned
it's become more experience-driven than story-driven, which is, I think, unfortunate, but he's probably right. I mean, that's why people put up with those 3 Star Wars prequels. It's not that they were any good. It was just that the experience was, fun. The fact that you could see all that incredible visual stuff. I mean...
I think Star Wars might actually... Because for me, Star Wars is a trilogy. There was no such special edition. I have disavowed the episode whatever bullshit. I've actually started to suspect that maybe Disney buying out Lucas might be the best thing that ever happened for the brand.
But Disney owning anything is not a good thing.
Well,
don't kid yourself. But
it's selling for that little amount of money makes me wonder that if they were in trouble, because I at least like on the game side, I know that they've had a problem since day one for 20 years trying to make games, and ILM is being used less and less because all these startups can do CG for half the price.
I think Lucas just had to let go of it. Yeah, I think it's a problem. I think it's one of those things where he just didn't know how. He didn't know how. I think he finally just had to basically let go of it. Unfortunately, he gave it over to the evil empire. But that's because
but David Tennant's on Clone Wars, and now I'll watch Clone Wars.
Bringing up that whole experience it's funny because I did a panel when I was in Melbourne, Australia, And people were asking me what I thought of the current crop of movies. And, they were all like nuts about the Avengers. And I basically said I thought the Avengers was a poor movie. And they sucked the air out of the room. I literally turned into a vacuum, and all the plastic bags crumpled all at once, It was like, and I said, no, I'll explain it to you in very, very simple terms. And I finally won them over once I did this. Just simply speaking, it's not that it's a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just a bad story. It's an episode. It's not a real story, because a story involves conflict, and a conflict leaves your hero inexorably changed as a result of it. And I said, for example, is Luke Skywalker the same character at the end of Star Wars as he was in the beginning? No.
It's like the most epic change in
right.
movies.
Yeah.
Is he the same at the end of Empire Strikes Back? No.
No.
Okay. Is Ripley the same after the end of Alien?
No.
Or Aliens? No. Because the conflict defines the character, and once the conflict is resolved, the character is inexorably changed. Are the Avengers exactly the same as they are at the beginning of the movie? Yes, because there was no conflict. It was just an episode. The only real conflict, I guess, was the S.H.I.E.L.D. guy who got killed. Sorry, spoiler alert. But yeah, I mean, there was really no character conflict in it. It was just basically, here's a big monster, we got to fight it. It was an episode, and that I found disappointing because I think Joss Whedon is an incredible writer. I'm a Buffy fan. I love Buffy and Angel. It's like,
and
but,
Firefly.
Yeah, I love them all. But I really think that this is the trouble with large studios. Had he been able to write the movie that he probably wanted to write, there would have been, because he knows how to write.
Yes.
So I'm sure that he was still forced to the edicts of his masters there, but that's what worries me about working in terms of the big studios. But yeah, so when I explained to the audience, and I went on about Dark Knight too, the last one, which I just thought was awful, and I explained why.
Why?
Not in great detail, but I mean it's again the same problem. In terms of real resolution of conflict, it's just not there. It's like people go there because they want to stay for 2.5 hours in Gotham City, because Gotham City has all that cool shit. But ultimately, at the end of the day, okay, Batman, he's captured by Bane, and then he winds up in the Lazarus Pit in Tibet. Okay, how do you get out of the city? The city's in lockdown, all right? Then he's there for like God knows how long, and he climbs out. He's broke, by the way, because remember, he's lost all his stuff. And he magically appears back in Gotham City again. And at that point,
lots of stuff.
At that point, I just checked out. I mean, my brain checked out. Like, okay, they've lost me. And there was also the thing at the end where he rewires his helicopter or something. When did he become an electronics expert? Where was Morgan Freeman, who in the other movies always did all that crap for him? Suddenly now he can reprogram computer guidance systems.
Well, no, that was a Batman movie without Batman. There was actually very little on-screen Batman time.
Well, I'm just saying it wasn't a good movie. It just wasn't a good movie. But Vosberg was right in the sense that I think that people go for the experience of being on Tatooine, or they go the experience of being in Gotham City.
And you think that's led to the popularity of 3D?
Well, I think it's because it's more about the experience than it is about the story. That's why I said I personally find independent films far more engaging, because they're more story driven. They're not about big special effects and tentpole stuff. They're really about character, and to me, that's always more interesting. I mean, even the small film like James Gunn's Super is like have you seen Super?
Yes.
It's a terrific movie because it's all character driven. It's not a big special effects thing. It's funny, but it's poignant too. I mean, I think it's a brilliant film.
What do you think about James Gunn's next project?
Well, again, it's going to be the same problem that Joss Whedon has. Basically, he's going to do what he's allowed to do, not what he's capable of doing. And that's the tragedy of it, I mean, it's at the same time, it's like, I'm sure he'll produce something that's really terrific. He's an enormous talent, just as Joss Whedon is. But again, under the big studio system, what can you actually get away with? How much? Because again, are they interested in telling the story? Or are they interested in the theater-going experience? It's like if we put enough explosions and robots in it, it'll be fine.
I will admit to saying that I saw was it Live Free and Die Hard, the one where they jumped the car into the helicopter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in the trailer. I'm like, yeah, I'm seeing that. Like that was
Yeah, but you remember that, right? Yeah,
But
because,
that's Die Hard almost as a series is after the first movie was essentially designed for that. And like if you go see a Die Hard movie and you expect anything else other than that, I think you're kind of going for the wrong reason.
yeah, I mean, because the John McClane character was never basically meant to be somebody deep.
Right. Exactly. He's supposed to be the every
it's
guy.
an action vehicle, yeah, but it's also the guy with an indomitable will, basically that, and again, it goes back to that a guy who always finds a way to win, no matter what the odds, you know.
I've been watching, rewatching Freaks and Geeks on Netflix. It's an older series. It's Judd Apatow before he was Judd Apatow.
It's the jumpstart of many famous careers right now as well.
And that show, the one thing that I have been loving about it is the character development episode by episode. Have you seen it?
No.
No.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend. And for everyone in our audience, it's on Netflix right now. Watch it. Just beautiful. If you want characters, stories. Martin Starr's character I'm obsessed with.
If you haven't watched the show, you'll be surprised at how many people. I mean, the entire cast is essentially people that are famous now.
You're like, that's where James Franco came from.
Exactly, that's
There's
where
been several
Seth
shows
Rogen
like
came
that.
from.
Yeah, there's a lot of
This
shows
is-
like that. People just these shows just spawned whole generations
Right.
of,
Stars.
Stars, yeah, exactly.
Space did that in the UK for
Space.
Simon Pegg and that whole British comedy crew. That's pretty big now too as well.
So did you guys want to talk about the iPad Mini at all?
Sure.
I think that would be okay.
I had to separate. I had to physically, literally separate Redban and Nick from their nerdgasm over the new iPad Mini, which I have not touched yet.
Never even touched it.
I've never even touched it.
Oh my God, he's got one.
He's got one.
course.
I haven't seen it either. I have I have an iPad, but I don't have a Mini.
Do you have a
read
little
comic books
iPad?
on your iPad?
What?
Do you read comics on your iPad?
Nope.
What
I
do you-
don't. I don't read comics at all, unless somebody hands them to me, like at a show or something. It's like I went to a comic shop for the first time probably a year to buy a copy of Colony when it came out before I got my freebie copies because I
Wow.
just wanted to see it. But no, I generally don't read comics because I don't want to be influenced by them while I was doing them. I mean, and now it just seems kind of like irrelevant to me.
I mean, you're now a legend, so.
Well, yes, honey.
Now that legend
yes,
status
yes,
is-
Ryan, I'm old. Okay, just rub it in.
Actually, you said that you don't read necessarily while you're writing, but when you're not writing, you said you read nonfiction. What recently have you read? I'm very curious.
A great book called "The Greatest Science Fiction Movies Never Made," which I have a chapter for that book if they ever do a sequel. Because Free Mind, that's how I wound up out here in the first place. Was 6 years of development for Free Mind, one of the Future Comics characters. They told me to get out here because it would show the film was going to go into pre-production. I move out here from the East Coast. 2 days later, the whole project fell apart. But basically, it tells. I think it's David. I can't remember the author's name now. I want to say Hawkins, but
it is on Amazon right now. The greatest science fiction movie ever made.
Never made.
Never made. It's by David Hughes. And
Hughes,
it has
David
been,
Hughes, yes.
Revised and expanded. Okay, so now that you've
That is
touched it,
great. You cannot put it down because and I have experienced stories like this in my own life, right? So it's kind of like, but it's about all these projects, how they started off with the best of intentions, and how they basically, including John Carter, which is really funny because John Carter has a 30-year history in Hollywood of just being butt raped by by studios. So it's kind of like. And I think it got a bad rap because I don't think the movie was that awful.
I didn't see it.
And I didn't think it was that awful, but I mean, they just didn't know how to market it and blah, 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 blah. But there's some great stories in there, and they paint some interesting pictures of some well-known Hollywood figures in there at the same time. But it was one of those kind of things that was really close to home to me, and I could not put that sucker down.
So go out and check it out. It's on Amazon. Or actually go to a brick and mortar store and support those people.
Yes.
The greatest sci-fi movies never made, revised and expanded by David Hughes. Okay, now that you have fondled it, Nick Ahrens.
Right.
Let me see that.
Here.
Nick. Wow. It does all the functions of a normal
Yeah,
iPad.
it
right?
runs. There's no all the same exact apps will work just natively. There's no you don't have to. There's no different versions. It all just works. So if you sign in, you get all your same apps.
Yeah,
and all that
my
kind of
only
stuff.
problem is that I use Final Draft, and this is awful small to be writing on. Because does it fit into the keyboard?
Well,
thing?
it'll take it's Bluetooth, so it'll take any Bluetooth keyboard you buy. It'll still work.
No,
with
well,
that.
my iPad. Fits
You have a
into
case. You have a case.
Station fits into.
No, because there's a different connector on the bottom. They have the new
They will
updates.
have one soon.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have.
Yeah,
tons
but
for
I'm
this.
just saying. Still, I mean, imagine trying to write a script on a page that small.
You write on
know.
your iPad?
Sometimes when traveling, yeah. They just came out with a final draft for iPad, so
That's cool.
So yeah, now I like when I flew to Australia, I just sat on my thing, and for 15 hours I just worked on metal.
That's amazing.
You know, yeah.
The only thing I don't like about, like, I've been playing with it now for almost 2 weeks or whatever. And the only thing I don't like about it, and it's something I guess I never noticed that the original size iPad has, is it doesn't have the same camera features, even though the cameras are pretty similar. Like, it doesn't have HDR functions, which is where it takes
Really?
where
really
it takes
weird.
a picture of like a light version of the picture and a dark picture of and puts them together.
Blends them together.
It doesn't have the new panoramic shots and stuff. But the only thing I would recommend, like, I love it to death. I think it's a great. I like it better than my normal size iPad. The only thing I would recommend doing, which I originally said I wouldn't recommend, is I would get the cellular version, which I think comes out
You
next
were
week.
against that before, originally.
Yeah, because I've just found that using the hotspot feature on your iPhone is not as fast and easy as it should be. Meaning, a lot of times it doesn't reconnect. Like, you have to turn it off and then turn it back on. And I'm constantly like, oh, I'm not connected. Shit, you know. But so I would probably wait next week for the cellular version.
The only thing that's annoying is it's like $110 jump in price or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit frustrating.
And about
It is.
100% more likely to lose it somewhere. It's pretty small, dude.
Yeah,
you know,
it is small.
It's like you fall between the cracks of the couch or
Yeah.
something, and like you're screwed. You know,
It is the perfect size, which was surprising to fit in your front jean pocket. Which
Does it fit?
Yeah, it fits perfectly right here.
yeah. I imagine it could fit in my jacket pocket, right?
Oh yeah.
My suit jacket. Yeah.
Well, the
I
nice
imagine-
thing is too is it's small enough to hold it in one hand.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that I
So
don't
why
like
don't they
about
just
the.
turn
So
it
you
into
can fap with it.
Why don't they just fucking
Exactly.
turn it into a phone and be done with it?
Well, that's the biggest thing too. Is,
You know, just make it all function. Turn it into a phone. I Skype on my pad all the time. I
Yeah.
love Skype, but it's like, why don't you just turn it into a phone and end it all? You know?
well, it's funny too because you get the cellular data for it, and this only thing that's missing is just
The phone app.
voice at that point. Because iMessaging is on there, so you literally just can't make traditional phone calls. So all you do is pay Skype a little extra money, and then you can start
Right,
doing
but
it.
I'm just saying, why don't they just stick their dick in all the way and just make it a phone?
They probably will eventually. I
Oh,
think
come on,
that
that'll be in 6 months.
I think the typing.
Piss everyone off.
iPad Mini too.
Because I have an old fashioned flip phone, you know, because I don't bother getting an iPhone because I have an
Ooh, a
iPad.
razor. A
Yeah,
razor.
yeah, I know. Look at that. This is
best of
crazy.
the- it's still the
And
best-
you
it's the best
texted
of
me
the
from
phone
that.
calls.
Yeah, from this antique that you can
T9.
smell the kerosene from what you know.
The one thing I didn't like with the original iPad is typing on it because, you know, the distance between the two, even
Get
if
the
you
keyboard,
split,
man, the
even if
keyboard.
you split the keyboard, you're still, you know, it's not the best for typing.
The keyboard dock changes all that.
Yeah, I had that.
Speaking of keyboards,
but-
what do you guys think about Surface?
But hold on
one
one
cares.
sec. Well, let me finish my sentence. Jesus. But the one thing is that the distance between the two, you could touch thumbs, you know, when you're typing, and so typing on it actually is a huge improvement. And I noticed that I found myself typing a lot using it, just because of the size. It's perfect size for the keyboard. So I don't know. I thought I altogether I would highly recommend it more than the regular iPad probably.
Interesting. And it runs okay with the it says an older processor, older screen, all that kind of stuff.
Everything's great. The screen, of course, is not Retina, but I don't even notice it. And the battery life seems to be a way better battery than the actual iPad for some reason. Like, this lasted me, like, I was live streaming Ustream on this
Right.
multiple times. I used it for probably 5 days until I needed to plug it
That's
in.
insane.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's absolutely insane.
That's like the first iPad still to me is like the best iPad battery. 'Cause
Yeah.
The first one lasts like a month for me
yeah,
on standby.
I agree. I have one.
You ask about Surface. I just played with one yesterday. And
This is an easy answer, right?
it's hardware wise, it is super sexy. The magnesium body that there's no like phone or tablet or anything that has that kind of body. It's like you feel like, holy shit, this is the highest quality piece of hardware I've ever felt in my life. That's what I felt as soon as I picked it up. But then as soon as I started playing with the interface, I was kind of like, what the fuck?
This is so stupid. I know that they're not going to ever be able to get past the iPad's operating system. Like their operating system on the iPad is pretty legit, and it seems
because
like
it only does what it needs to do.
Yeah, exactly. And the Surface just seems clunky. It seems like poorly. It doesn't look pretty. I don't think
I actually really, as a designer, I kind of totally get like a designer boner over the way it looks. But in
for operating system,
yeah, for the tiles though, but like not like the traditional like stuff that's behind it. Right. I think the problem they're still going to constantly have is there's the two different worlds. You have the traditional desktop hiding behind this whole new interface that they want people to learn. But there's like even like like if your computer's freezing up and you want to go to your tasks and like force quit something or something like that. There's two completely different ways to do that on this tablet.
Right.
It's like if you're talking about ease of use and talking about you want to do what Apple's doing where it just works. That's kind of heading in the wrong direction.
Why is it that Microsoft just doesn't get that it just works mentality?
I think they're
simplicity?
They're not listening to the Xbox brand. Their gaming brand is their most highest quality thing that they do.
Yeah.
I mean, the Xbox is the leader in console. All the stuff, even like I don't know
their
if you've
customer service department's amazing too.
It's amazing. If you've ever streamed a movie on Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV, all those, none of them are better than the Xbox's first-party video service. You can rent a movie, first of all, for like $1.50 versus Apple's like $4. You rent a movie at 1080p, instantly works.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter your internet connection. They just found some kind of crazy magic and it works. And I think Microsoft needs to look at that team. I think the company's too big, for one thing, but they need to look at that team and take cues from what they're doing and bring it across the other products that they're making, because they keep saying we want to be a hardware manufacturer now. We want to make our own hardware. They want to do what Apple's doing, make their own laptops. They're starting with that tablet. They need to pay attention to what's working within their company and not just try to reinvent the wheel.
So the feel of it to you was good. Because I remember when I first saw the introduction, I thought I remembered it just looking like it was a big block,
It's super thin.
It is.
It's super. It's about as thin as your iPad.
Okay.
It feels really good. It feels so much better than the actual interaction that I had with it. That it was very confusing. Like if I were to buy this and just be not tech nerd Nick, but like just Joe everyone, and I bought this, I'd be like, I would probably return it. Honestly.
But better OS than Android?
No.
See, I think Android's pretty close to being an okay operating system. I think it's a little confusing. I think there's some things I don't really prefer, in comparison to iOS 6. But I don't think if I had to choose, I would ever choose Android over iOS 6, and the Surface to me looks like it's just 10 steps back behind even
so it's kind of like that peach. You find a peach and it looks perfect,
and then you
bite into it as hard as a rock, right?
Yeah.
It's just like it gets you all like excited,
yeah.
And then you bite into it and it's not right.
Yeah, exactly.
Nectarines,
So
it sucks.
So you're saying it's
kind of like that
in a bad way.
And I think honestly, I don't think they'd actually have to do too much to fix it. I think they just and listen, they will. That's just what they do. I think they're upgrading at like 100 million units a quarter now or something like that. I mean, the numbers are staggering. I don't think people realize how much grip Microsoft still has in the computing world. For every 1 million Macs that are out there,
is that still true?
Yes, the market share is literally 10s, 20s, 30 times what Apple has. In the hundreds of millions.
It's all the business workspace.
Yes,
it has
it
to be, or unless they're counting the computers in landfills or something.
It could be that, but it's think about it this way: Mac has to make the hardware, the software. They have to market everything they do to get this product to the consumer is done through them, and that's part of the reason why it's so expensive. Whereas Microsoft just goes, "We've made some software. Hey Samsung, hey HP, hey Dell, whatever." You know what I mean? Like, just do what you're gonna do. So I think they're slowly starting to realize that may not be the best path anymore.
Somebody told me on Twitter that I could pair my iPad mini to my iPhone using Bluetooth, not Wi-Fi. Keeps it connected when asleep and not noticeable battery drain. How would I connect?
You can pair them together, but I still think you're going to get a battery drain from the data on your phone. Your phone's going to die quick.
Right, but you can. I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do that. I just don't think it might be. I still don't think it's the best solution.
Huh. Yeah.
Super hardcore nerd out, guys.
You asked for it. Yeah.
Are you going to get an iPad mini, Ryan?
I don't have that kind of money. Dude, I'm quitting my really, really good job to try to make it as a host.
Right.
So yeah, and then
Try, you will.
I will. Do it or not do.
Exactly. You got to Yoda this shit.
Is Naked News?
Yoda up, baby.
Yeah.
Actually,
Naked News?
Yeah.
Naked News. I would love Naked News.
Oh, I've been on Naked News.
You have.
Were you naked?
No, I wasn't naked.
What
no.
the studio smell like?
I didn't.
The
I
spotlights.
didn't go there. They came to me.
Oh.
And the chick who interviewed me was really cool. She was wearing a dark Phoenix outfit.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Yeah, no. She actually turned out to be. We wound up being friends. Actually.
Did she take off her clothes while
No,
she's interviewing?
no. They only do that in studio.
So it's a segment stuff.
So
they don't do,
when I went up to, first time I went up to Toronto for the Fan Expo up there, she came and introduced herself and did this little interview with me. You know, it wound up on Naked News. You know, it was like I'd never heard of it before that, but it sounds like a fun thing to me. You know, it's like
I've never
Not
actually
that-
seen it.
you know, I'm not opposed to it. You know, but no, you can find it. I think it's on YouTube. You can find some broadcasts or something like that. Cool. Or, you know, but it's an interesting concept. They basically strip as they tell the daily news stories.
That's amazing. Yeah. Are you going to be at any conventions coming up soon? Can people come and meet you in person and possibly commission an Ironman?
I am setting up my convention schedule for 2013 right now. I will be in London for the SuperCon.
I'm so jealous.
That's the 23rd and 24th. I think I'm going to be in February. I think I'll be in Paris the week before for the Paris Manga Show. I'm just talking to them now, trying to finalize that. Then from there, I'm going to MegaCon in Orlando, Florida. Then Emerald City Convention.
So pretty much all of them.
Well, this is what I'm saying so far. And I'm doing Comic Palooza in Houston, Texas. In Tampa Bay Comic-Con in April.
When you do finalize that schedule, is there a place on the internet where people can find it?
It'll be posted on my Facebook page, or it'll be on my Comic Art fan page. I always put my convention schedule there for those comic art people who are just absolutely, engaged in the concept of getting a sketch from me.
Which they should. I saw you doing...
or they just write me and I'll send it to them, whatever it is. I'm pretty much a public figure. You go to the website and put bob@boblayton.com. You can write me, send me. Unless you're that Canadian guy. There's a Canadian Bob Layton. I keep getting his hate mail. Well, no, there's this prick on Canadian radio. And he's like some right-wing extremist
Oh, no.
broadcaster who happens to do a night gig as a ventriloquist.
Wow.
And his name is Bob Layton. So he'll make some kind of like outrageous statement on his radio show or whatever like that. And then I will start getting hate mail when people just, calling him a dick and, get oot if here, that kind of thing. And I finally asked him. I wrote him and just said, dude, can you change your email address to something a little less obvious than mine? Because I said, I'm just really sick of getting your fucking, hate mail all the time. And he's like, no, but hey, you could do a drawing of me that I could use on, my show. And I'm like, wow, you really are a dick. It's like, yes, no, I wasn't writing you for an opportunity for you to exploit me. I was trying to get you to, have your people stop sending their hate mail to me.
You should actually just start replying back, be like, I've totally changed my ways. I'm a totally new guy, and just start being him from a different persona.
Or yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. Just sort of say, why don't you go fuck yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
or
I'll send him pictures of my dick or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say find fake dick pics.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
small ones.
I have real ones. I don't need fake ones.
I have a penis and we'll use it.
No, I have pictures. I had a girlfriend who used to take lots of photos. I have a few laying around somewhere.
It's funny because
Send them back.
I said this recently on podcast. I don't know if I said it on this one though, but how I used to always have fake dick pics that like when like I'll have one that looks like my bedroom and it kind of looks, but because I never really wanted to send out my real dick pic. But the other day I was playing around with my new iPhone 5 camera and I'm like, that's a really good angle. That looks that looks really nice. So then I ended up just sending it to every person I knew. 'Cause I'm like, if it gets out, it's fine. You know. Did I send it to you, Ryan?
I did not get that.
All right, I'll send it.
So
Damn it! You already sent it. I've got it.
Right.
Yeah, so back to your question. I am finalizing the rest of my fall schedule in terms of what I'm going to be doing. But like I said, I just got back from a 2-week gig
you
in
were
Australia.
gone for a while.
which was, and it's not the trip there that kills you. It's coming back because I left Auckland, New Zealand at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday and arrived in LA at 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. If that doesn't screw you up, I don't know what doesn't.
I've done that from Tokyo a few times, and you walk off plane, you're like, wait a second, wait.
Your bio clock just goes berserk.
Yeah.
And because I don't sleep on planes either, so I was up working, and it's just like it took me like 10 days to get like my life straightened back out, but I had an enormous time. It was really fun, but doing 2 cons back to back is a tough gig. I wound up totally with laryngitis when I got back, but it was what.
But you could come on until now, and I am so happy that you're on now.
No, so it was like that was part of the problem. I couldn't get on before because I sounded like Nick Nolte, from 48 Hours. They lost one of my bags. They lost one of my bags in Sydney, a transfer flight. So I get back home and I'm trying to talk to the airline. I'm trying to talk to Qantas, and I'm like, I want my bag is somewhere. It's taking a scenic view of Sydney. I'd like to get it back. I'm like,
You have a fantastic Nick Nolte impression.
Yeah, so anyway, or that or Tom Waits. I sounded like Tom. Earlier on, I sounded like Tom Waits.
I love Tom Waits.
Yeah, me too. Except I was with Ian Churchill, never heard of him before. Ian's like a British artist. He was my traveling buddy over there.
Knowing about Tom Waits, there's certain things that a man can say to me that can just guarantee that they're never, ever, ever going to get in my pants. And not knowing who Tom Waits is one of those.
Let's face it. Like the live Nighthawks at the Diner is like one of the greatest albums ever made. Yeah,
I'm
it's
actually more of an early years fan.
Yeah, when I started to lose my voice, I sort of really liked Tom Waits, and then we got down to Nick Nolte. It's like
stages of laryngitis.
Yeah, so that
Nolte.
But I had a great time there. It was fun. Everybody there was really terrific. I got to hang out with a couple of people, Bruce Boxleitner from Tron and Chris Judge from Stargate SG-1. Chris is a bad man.
He's a Stargate.
I'm a big fan.
Oh, really? Oh, it was really funny because
Stargate fan.
He and I were hanging out at a Starbucks in Auckland, and people would give him that like sideways eyeball look, like they knew who he was, but they weren't sure. Right. In Auckland they have that $2 like brass coin,
right?
And every so often I just take it and I put it up on his forehead, and he'd swat away. Just get it,
That's awesome.
But he's a super nice guy.
I'd imagine, I always imagine the big, tough, brooding characters in all these shows that run for
just the opposite
forever. Exactly, like the guy who plays Worf, or the guy who plays Teal'c, and all these
Christopher
different
Judge,
all these different characters. You have to imagine that they're just, as soon as they break character, they're just like, and they just want to let go.
I appreciated Stargate a lot.
Right.
I found out that Chris played safety for the Oregon Ducks.
Oh, really?
He was 4 years. He was like varsity.
He's a super tall and big dude.
And he played safety. Oregon Ducks are like my favorite college team.
Right.
And when I found out that he played safety for 4 years for the Ducks, then I went fanboy on him.
Yeah, cool. You're on a TV show.
Screw Teal'c.
Wait a second.
Yeah, exactly. But it was fun. Because unlike most conventions, they kind of mingled the celebrities and the comic people together. So we all got to hang out in the same places and do the same things all the time. So it was kind of fun. It's like every morning Bruce come down and have breakfast with Ian and I, and every night Chris would be in the bar.
Awesome.
So it's like it was a lot of fun.
It's totally awesome.
I got some good breaking news for you guys.
Yes.
All right.
Let's have it.
This is Nick. You're going to like this the most, probably.
Lay it on me.
Ryan,
Are you going to roll your eyes at us?
I have homework for Ryan. In the next 3 months, we're going to have the author of Ready Player One, Ernest Cline, on
such
the
a
show.
good book.
And he's going to be in LA hopefully next month, or if not, January or February. So
if you haven't read that book, by the way, out there, it's fantastic.
I'm reading it right now. So.
That's perfect because we're going to be on hiatus until January.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. This is our last show.
Well, you saved me for last, Ryan. I'm so flattered.
I was like, I needed to go out with a big star.
Oh, stop.
I needed people to have a reason to come back in January. Yeah.
Where are you going to be?
I am going to be in France learning French.
Oh, that's right.
For
1 month?
In 1 month.
You'd be surprised how quick you pick it up when you have to.
And 8.5 hours a day, 5 days a week at a intensive language program might drill it into my little brain.
Well, the first time I went over there, I took, when I was in high school, I took 2 years of French. It was the only class I ever flunked out of, actually. It's because I told the teacher to kiss my ass, but I said, I'd tell you in French, but I don't know how to speak it after 2 years, And he threw me out. But I got frustrated because, it's like the rich kids would go to France for the summer and they come back and they're rattling off fluently.
Wearing
And
little berets.
because they teach proper French in school back then.
Yeah.
They didn't
Right.
teach conversational French.
Which is a huge difference for almost all languages
Yeah,
when you learn.
exactly. So, but it was really funny because when I went over to Paris last time I was there, it was like a year and a half ago, all the stuff from like 45 years ago started coming back in my head. I could start counting. I remembered how to count in French again.
Un,
Un,
deux,
deux, trois, quatre, quatre, cinq, six, huit, dix, neuf.
Wow.
It's like, it all just started coming back to me. All the all the litanies that they had taught me, So it was like surprising. After like day 10, I was getting around, functioning pretty well for ugly American, But I have you been there before?
I keep randomly ending up in France.
I love Paris. I wish I could live there.
I'm going to be in Paris for Christmas.
If I could live somewhere other than here, well, I'd love to live anywhere.
I'd do Saint-Tropez.
But no, I mean, I would love Paris because I remember I come from New York City too, and the one thing about Paris is it has a pulse. Like the really interesting cities, you can feel the beat. Everybody moves at a certain pace. You can feel the subway beneath your feet. You can feel the pulse of the city, and it's going on time. And Paris has that, except it has. Unlike New York, it has that sort of cultural artsy flair to it. I mean, you can sit there and just watch the filigree on buildings forever, and no two are alike. It's just, I fell in love with the place. I haven't been able to eat a American croissant since I got back.
I am going to go on the all croissant diet. But the thing
The
about
croissants
France,
are like pizza, like New York pizza. Once you've had it, no
just
other
can't do
pizza
anything else.
is any good. Now, once you've eaten a croissant in France, the rest of them taste like cardboard.
my favorite thing about France is you go there, you stuff yourself with bread and cheese for as long as you're there, and you come back 5 pounds thinner. It makes no sense.
I know. Well, it's the way they eat. That's what I love there because I go out when when I was at the con at the Paris Mango Show. We'd go out to dinner. We get there about 8, and we'd be there till 1 a.m.
And you'd eat
And
everything.
you're just nibbling. You're not.
but you're
12
not.
croissants
You're
at
not
once.
throwing in this truck driver portion of like chicken fried steak and then getting the hell out of Dodge. You're sitting there and pretty much savoring whatever is coming around. Plus, those guys drink an enormous amount of wine. But I love my French friends, and the fans there were tremendous. Like I said, any chance to go back, I'm on it.
I'm going to ask you one last question because I just don't want this to end. I don't.
That's not the first time I've heard that from women.
No, I'm blushing. So, 2 things. Never mind. What comic books inspired you so much that you were willing to work in comic books for the love of it? Because, as you said, you made no money.
Yeah.
Basically, no money.
None of us did. Yeah.
Why did you end up working in comics? What were the books that inspired you?
Well, I'll tell you what it is with me. It's like I said, I never had a fireman or policeman stage. When I was 4 years old, I loved comics because I could tell what was going on in the story without the ability to read. And I remember bugging my sister Sue to sit down and teach me what these words were, what they were saying. And I remember it would happen to be, ironically, it was a Jack Kirby and Wally Wood Challengers of the Unknown. And the 4 guys without superpowers, which is going to be the basis of my entire career because I tend to like guys without superpowers. And so by the time I got to school, I was reading proficiently. By the time I was in kindergarten, and I skipped a grade. I graduated high school when I was 17, because that put the hook in me right there because, not only was it fun and, exciting, and I couldn't believe that human beings could draw those people and make them come to life like that. But, I realized that it changed me, that it educated me. It drove me to learn, and that it was a powerful medium. Any medium that does that is a powerful medium. So from the time I can remember, I was going to be a cartoonist. I was going to be a storyteller, and oddly enough, when I finally got my first break to work as an apprentice, it was with Wally Wood, the very guy who did the comic that I first read. So it's like there's all kinds of full circle sort of things in my life that's really bizarre. But the universe is filled with mind-numbing coincidences, So so that was pretty much it. Never a fireman or a policeman. It was just storyteller, and I'm still there.
And people can find you? On Facebook?
Oh, sure. I'm on. Please, I'm on Facebook. You can go to my website, BobLayton.com. You can email me through there, or just email me at bob@boblayton.com.
I have to thank you so much. This has probably been one of my favorite episodes to date. So
What's been fun, other than the drive here, which was like horrendous. 2 hours in traffic just to get here.
Oh, Los Angeles.
Yes, we gotta love LA, man.
So I want to thank Bob Layton, of course, Robot Pants,
Yeah.
Nick Ahrens. People can find you at Robot Pants on Twitter.
Twitter, Instagram. I'm kind of done with all the other social networks at this point. So that's it, yeah.
That's
me
it.
too.
So
You gave up your MySpace page?
I might bring it back.
I don't even know if I have one. They redesigned the whole thing. Yeah. Justin Timberlake rebooted it from scratch, and it actually looks beautiful. The new design is quite amazing. So.
Yeah.
And I guess I will see all of you in January. If you want to see me before then, RyanKeely.com will relaunch next week. It will be a blog. It will have photos. You can come with me on my journey through language school in France and what other adventures I make it on in the side. And I will be back here on Muff Said in January. Follow me at Twitter at Ryan Keely. And of course, I'm going to throw it to the very best co-host a girl could ask for, Brian Redban.
Death Squad's coming to San Diego. We are going to be there 12/12/12. Tickets are at AmericanComedyCo.com. We're also going to be at the Hollywood Improv on December 20th. You just go to improv.com and search for Death Squad. And we're starting a new show at the Comedy Store. It's a live Death Squad show. Tickets are free. And the first show is going to be December 3rd at 7:30 p.m. And we're also going to do the Ding Dong Show podcast the same day. So there's actually 2 new podcasts coming to you live from the Comedy Store. But Ryan, it's great. I'm going to miss you. And
I'm going to miss you so much. Send me a
miss
dick
all-
pic so I have to remember you guys.
Yeah, send your dick to all of us.
I will send my dick pic to you right now. Actually, we should just send it so you can have a live online review of my dick pic. All right?
This is how we're leaving the show.
No, let me find it first. It's been a while since I've sent it to somebody.
I don't believe you.
You don't believe me? All right, hold on 1 second.
No, I don't believe it's been that long since you've sent it.
Oh,
to
have you-
anyone.
Have you seen Wreck-It Ralph yet?
It's so good!
I know.
It's so fucking good! Go out and see it. It's so enjoyable.
Okay, Ryan Key. Oh shit! I sent it to my friend Ryan.
That's how you end a show.
That's the other good thing about having a flip phone. You don't do that.
All right, dick pic sent.
Okay, I am waiting. It hasn't come through yet.
Come on, I missed.
Why, is it that big?
It's a
It's
big
not bad.
it's a big file size.
That's a lot of megabytes.
It says it's delivered.
I got nothing.
Wrong Ryan again.
That's probably
Oh.
the first time. It's not the first time he's heard that from a woman either.
Is it in yet?